All right, guys, so this workout, we're gonna focus on what Doc Goodman did with Josh in the last video, which was focusing on scoliosis, because they both have scoliosis of the spine. So we're gonna start on our back with a supine decompression. So let's lay on our backs, feet to the camera. All right, so laying on your back, we're gonna bring the legs together. The hands can come down to your sides for the moment, fingertips into the ground. Bring your legs together, pull the toes towards your face. All right, with the toes pulling towards your face, heels are on the ground. You're gonna touch the big toes and separate the heels. Nice, so we got that subtle degree of internal rotation right now. Now we're gonna unlock the knees just enough that you can let the inner thighs touch and hug together. So right now you're thinking about toes touching, heels separated, rotating and squeezing the inside thighs. You wanna feel tension up the inside thigh, maybe a little bit of activation and tension like your hips are trying to wrap and hug towards each other. Let's really focus on pulling the toes up, get that front side of the shin working. Now you're gonna bring the fingertips to measuring sticks. So pinky comes to the top of the pelvis, thumbs to the low ribs, and let's pull the elbows wide to the sides. Don't let them rest on the ground. Try to lengthen through the back neck now. Chin back, chest up. We're gonna go for 5 decompression breaths here, guys. Breathing wide into the back of the rib cage. Exhale, pull the stomach in. Focus now on lengthening and engaging that abdominal with every exhalation. Your elbows are actively pulling wide. That should feel like work right now. As you pull the toes up, the front of the shin should be working. Inner thighs should be cooking as you squeeze, rotate, and hug the inner thighs. Let's just float the hands right up to that sphere of tension over the heart. Squeeze the fingertips so I can't separate the hands. Think about shrugging the shoulders down away from the ears. For a moment, imagine a sheet of paper in your armpit that you're trying to squeeze onto. Feel the lats under the arms engage, and then breathe width between the shoulder blades. For a few more decompression breaths, I want to check in. The toes are pulling towards the face. The inner thighs are hugging and actively engaging, tractioning that pelvis. The fingertips are squeezing so I can't separate the hands. You're breathing and expanding the rib cage. You're lengthening and engaging the abdominal with every exhalation. You're breathing in your nose, slow and controlled. You're exhaling even slower with control, focusing on every point. And then after the next exhale, relax everything down and just shake it out for a second. Take 20 seconds, let it all go, and just move around, do what feels good. I want you to shake off. When we generate all that tension, we want to let go of all that tension. All right, now we're gonna go back into that position and setting up for a leg trace. So lay on your back, fingertips are gonna go active into the ground. Let's bring the legs together. With the legs together, we pull the toes towards our face, big toes touch, separate the heels. Unlock the knees and bring the inside thighs together. This is Madonna's favorite movement, man. Josh knows it. I'm gonna try to lengthen you out, Josh. Come as far as you can without letting the thighs separate. Can you come down further? Further, 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 right there. Pull the toes up. Rotate and hug the thighs together. Actively push the fingertips into the ground. Breathe wide into the back of the rib cage. Now, you're gonna work to maintain this subtle degree of internal rotation. So slow and controlled. We're just gonna barely float the right foot off the ground. Hover it. Check in, are we maintaining that internal rotation as you place the heel at the base of the left ankle, just above your foot. Now, knee stays across the body, the hip stays down, you're gonna trace up the shin till you get just below the knee. Now let's check in there, pull the toes towards your face, push the fingertips into the ground. The knees staying across the body in that internal rotation. It should feel like your hips are still trying to wrap and hug towards each other. You're looking to feel the inside thigh working. Let's bring the left hand to meet the inside of the right knee. Push that hand into the knee. Knee meets the hand meets the knee, equal amounts of pressure. You want to feel the inner thigh working hard here. 2 more breaths here. Now, if you've got the range of motion, Josh does, we're gonna pivot the hand onto the pinky side of the palm. Now you're karate chopping in, try to shrug the shoulder down, rotate it open, think of wide across the chest for 1 more big breath here. Really try to push that knee across the body. Good. Let's bring the hand back down. With control, we pull the toes up, and with control, knee stays across, slowly trace back down. Fight the urge to just flop out of this. Bring it down, control the leg to the ground, and then let the internal rotation go. Beautiful, shake it out, guys. Let it go for a minute. That should feel like a lot of work. It should feel intense. At some moments, maybe even a little bit overwhelming if you're new to this. That's all right, your body's gonna adapt. Same thing with all those checkpoints I'm giving you. It should feel at times overwhelming or a little bit frustrating if you can't maintain them all. Just give yourself time and be patient. The ability to coordinate and connect everything comes with time and practice. Let's zip the legs up. Bring them back together. With the legs together, toes pull towards the face. Now we keep the big toes touching, we separate the heels. Setting up that degree of internal rotation. We unlock the knees and bring the inner thighs together right there. We're rotating and hugging those thighs together. It should feel like your hips are wrapping towards center. Let's push the fingertips into the ground, active through the fingertips. Elbows are off the ground. We've got those angry piano hands, gecko fingers. The back of the neck is nice and long. Hug the thighs, and for one expansive breath, breathe the rib cage wide across the floor. For good measure, as you exhale, lengthen, engage the abdominal. Think about all of it lengthening and maintaining the expansive rib cage. Now, slow and controlled, I'm really gonna stress that. We're gonna float the left foot just off the ground, keep the internal rotation, place it on the right shin, just above your foot. Slowly, we're gonna trace up the shin till we get just below the knee. Remember, try to stay calm in the storm here, guys. Once you get just below the knee, check in that both feet are maintaining dorsiflexion. We're trying to really pull the toes up. The hips are wrapping and hugging towards each other. Let's bring that right palm to meet the inside of the left knee, equal amounts of pressure. Push, knee into hand, hand into the knee. You want to feel that inner thigh firing on that top leg. For good measure, let's try to push the bottom knee up into the top heel down into the bottom knee. Pushing that palm in, can we pivot the hand and chop pinky side of the palm in? Try to keep an elbow, little bend in your elbow. Try to think of the shoulders down and wide onto the floor, and then you're breathing the rib cage really wide on the inhale. Now let's bring the hand back down, check in on all your points, and slowly with control trace down, keeping that knee across the body, and then place it on the floor, shake it off, let it all go. We're gonna come up to our feet. So I talk about slow and control, guys, because I want your nervous system to recognize that you have control as we go through these movements. That if we start to race through things, or maybe we try to speed through the portions that we're really struggling with, it's our way of bypassing the spots that we really need to work on. So we're gonna shake it out for a moment, move around, check in. Now, we're gonna go into a standing decompression. So I'm gonna have you guys come back in, angle for the camera for me, beautiful. Bring the feet together, big toes touch, separate the heels. Now, I want you guys to feel this. Pull the toes up for a moment. Try to root into the pads of your feet, the pad at the base of the big toe, the pad at the base of the pinky toe, and your heel, the 3 points of contact. Now, you're gonna let the weight shift to your heels as you unlock the knees and bring the inside thighs together. Let the thighs hug. Once you're there and the thighs are squeezing, let's try to pull a little bit of the bend out of the knee. Josh, let the weight shift to your heels as you do it. Good, think about squeezing the thighs. Stay right there. Actually, I'm gonna give you these guys. Come up, squeeze right onto there for me, good. Let the hands come out in front of the heart. Squeeze the fingertips. Let's go chest up, chin up, lengthening through the back neck. Feel that pull up and away from the tractioning of the pelvis. That squeezing of the thighs helps traction the pelvis. The squeezing of the fingertips, we're anchoring, we're closing the kinetic chain here. And now we're using the breath to expand and elevate the ribs. Exhale, maintain all of that space, all of that length, engage the abdominal, draw it in. Josh is doing an awesome job. So is Patti. She's thinking about pushing her head through my hand. She's not letting me separate her hands. She's hugging the thighs. Now let's start to hinge the hips back a couple inches. I'm gonna watch, beautiful work here. They're hinging their hips back. Neither one of them just did a pelvic tilt. They let the hips reach back. We're still breathing. We're still working here for a few more breaths. If you felt that in your low back, chances are you just did a pelvic tilt as opposed to a hip hinge. Let's float the hands up. Shrug the shoulders down right there, Josh. Elbows down towards each other. Beautiful. Squeeze the fingertips. One more powerful, expansive breath into the rib cage, and give me your slowest exhale before you let it all go and shake all the tension off. Good, guys. Let it go. Shake it down. You can let the sandals go. So we've really focused on setting up a good decompression, a solid anchor. Let's go into some spiral rotations real quick. I want to kind of stick to what Doc laid out for us with Josh last time. So we're going to go left foot forward, right foot back. And you want both feet facing forward. Now, we don't have to be on a balance beam, so if anybody's struggling with balance, we can bring that back foot over just a hair. And Josh, I'm actually having you bring your back foot towards me just an inch or two, and then step back a little bit further. Nice. Good, Patty. Now let's bring the weight to 50-50. Shift back. Think of almost falling backwards with your feet, and then bring the hands out in front of the heart. Eyes up, chest up. Lengthen through the back neck. Start to scissor the legs towards each other. So you want to think about you're smashing that front foot down and trying to drag it backwards, but it's not going to move. The back foot's trying to traction and meet it. Let's try to pull as much bend so it's barely unlocked. There we go. Good. I see a little bit of tremble. I like it. Now, bring the hands to your hips for a moment here, guys. As you scissor the legs, you're subtly going to rotate that right hip like it's trying to wrap around the front leg, but the front leg doesn't get to move. Let the hands float out in front of you. And then come back to center. From right here, scissor the legs towards each other. That front hip doesn't move, the back hip's trying to rotate and wrap around it. Think of just the back femurs trying to come around. Hold right there, guys. Float the hands up, squeeze the fingertips, bring the back of the neck nice and long, bring the gaze up. Good, big, expansive decompression breath. Exhale, lengthening, engaging the abdominal. Keep scissoring the legs. Keep trying to think about that hip wrapping as you spiral up and through into the fingertips. And then we'll rotate back to center and switch sides. Shake it out, switch legs. Now we're getting them moving. Now we're unwinding. Let's switch sides.
Is that your good side, Josh?
Yeah. So right foot forward, left foot back. Apparently these guys have a good side. Okay, bow to walking stride distance apart. Both feet facing forward, start to scissor the legs towards each other. Find that tension where you feel activation on the back side of the front leg, length and activation on the front side of the back. Bring the hands out in front of the heart. Now from right here, that front leg doesn't move at all. The back leg tries to rotate and wrap around it, and the upper body just responds to go along for the ride. Once the hips stop, you stop. For good measure, we're going to rotate back to where we started from. Scissor the legs and then rotate. When that hip stops, the upper body stops. Now we scissor the legs, try to lower the back heel as much as possible. Squeeze the fingertips, lengthen through the back neck. Let's bring the hands up. Beautiful. If you're still with us and feeling good, shrug the shoulders down, lengthen the neck, and let's start to decompress. Bring the breath in. We're expanding, lifting the low ribs up off the waistline, exhaling, lengthening, engaging, not giving anything back on the exhale. If the weight of the world's trying to push us down, we're meeting it powerfully. That breath is strong. These next couple of breaths, I want you to think of the intent. We're doing it like we deserve to be here. Let's go. Big inhalations, powerful. I want you guys to show yourselves how strong you can be in these movements, how connected all of it is, and then let it all go. Shake everything out, unravel. Now we're just gonna finish with one strong founder. I feel like it's always a cliche, but I wanna make sure we're hip hinging today. Oh, that's a rhyme. I just rhymed it. It's a cliche, but we're gonna hip hinge today. You guys can quote me. I can't quote myself, but let's go legs wide, guys. So when they're wide, put your hands on your hips for a minute. Feel a little bit of that rotation. What activates as you pivot the feet in? Let the hands come out. Lengthen through the neck as you shrug the hands down for the floor. Let's go 5 times. Hips and hands pull away from each other with control, and then back up. Hips and hands reach away from each other. As the hips reach back, the knees unlock, but it's all hips reaching behind us. Hips and hands reach away, back up. 2 more, hips and hands reach away, back up. And slow and controlled, hips back, try to keep the chest up as long as we can, right there, hold. Squeeze the fingertips. Look 6 to 8 feet out in front of you and try to pull your nose and throat long. Beautiful. Now, without letting the chest drop, try to sit back a few more inches with the hips. Boom, squeeze the fingertips. Now, think of pushing into those 3 points of contact in the feet. Rotating into that big toe pad and try to find tension up the inner thigh as you wrinkle the grasp between both feet. Can you feel the inner thigh adductor as we rotate down and into the big toe pad? We're traction, bringing stability to the pelvis. Now let's focus on power. I want you guys to try to spread the floor apart. Shift to the outside thigh, the lateral chain. You're spreading the floor apart strong as you pull yourself up and out of that hinge. Shake it off. Awesome work, you guys. Now it's Josh's turn. He's gonna take us through a couple of fun things, guys.
So I'll take you guys through a little bit of what I do, and I have a lot of background in MoveNat training and Vivo Barefoot, and I like to focus a lot on primitive primal type movements, and so I like to start from the ground up. And so anytime a person takes a class with me, I like to really go through foot movement, ankle mobility, and then work all the way up through the system. All right, cool. So let's start with opening up our feet a little bit. So I want to make sure that we all know how to actively engage our toes independently of each other. So let's start by just lifting up our big toes. Yeah, and this is an interesting one here because I notice a lot of people always look down and then they also do their fingers the same way as their toes. But that shows the connection between our feet and our hands, okay? So let's try to relax everything and settle everything down and just lift up the big toes. Lift up the big toes, drop the big toes. Again, big toes up, drop the big toes. Good. Now what we're gonna do is leave the big toes down and try to lift all the other toes off the ground. So sometimes it's hard to get those pinky toes to come up as well. So we want to lift that up as best you can, drop it down. Same thing, lift the toes up, drop it down. One more time, lift the toes up, drop them down. Now let's engage everything. So all toes up, kind of like you did with the anchor. You want to leave those, you want to feel those pads of the big toe and the pinky toe and the heel, and then drop them all down and lift them up again one more time. Drop them all down and relax. Now we're gonna help to open it up. So I want you to now take your right foot forward and I want you to curl the big toe underneath itself. So we're getting we're trying to really open up the tissues along the front part of that foot. And you might even feel a cramp on the underside of that big toe, and that's quite all right. And you wanna leave those other toes flexed out in front, okay? So settle everything down. And I've never had a person break a toe doing this, so don't worry. I know at home you're probably thinking, wait a minute, this is not right. It's okay. Okay, relax it, come back. Let's switch to the left, or the other foot if you've already done the left. So notice that I have my foot and my leg out in front of me and as straight as possible. And this is called like a software upgrade. So you want to really push through that mental block of like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. I have to stop right here. You can go a little bit farther each time. Okay, and relax. Let's go back to that first side again.
Wow,
just to encourage you. Here we go, right foot again, or the first side. And this time, take it a little bit farther. Try to curl that toe underneath itself as much as you can. And also look to see a couple things. One, are you cramping? Two, are you trying to bypass that motion? Are you turning that toe in? If so, you want to straighten it up or really challenge it by kind of corkscrewing it like so. All right? And let's go to the other side again.
Breathe.
Yeah. Breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Okay, let's go to the other foot. And again, that foot is out in front of your body, trying to be as straight as possible, and then look for cramping or any kind of bypassing of movement. All right, relax. Now we're gonna do the other toes. So if we did the same thing with lifting the big toes and then independently lifting the other toes, now we're gonna curl under the other toes. So the big toe stays on the ground. It should look like a thumbprint. Okay, we'll call it the big toe print. And now you're curling all those other toes independent of the big toe, and you should feel a lot of this soft tissue really opening up here. Okay, so really challenge it. Leg is straight, and I want you to feel like the skin is ripping on those toes. All right, and relax. Same thing, other side. And if you get a little bit of a click or popping sensation, chances are it's okay. Also, what I like to highlight is, if you notice, like on Jesse's toe, the big toe, it now is very red because that's brought about a lot of circulation. So we're cutting off the circulation to the other toes, and as soon as we release it, blood will start to come rushing back. And you can kind of notice that on his right foot here.
Yeah, it's
See,
plus.
so you're getting a lot of circulation throughout the feet, which is important, okay? All right, now let's go back and retest. After we've just opened those toes up a little bit, let's retest and see if we can lift those big toes independent of the other toes. Here we go. Lift them up. A lot of times this is a little bit, the recall here is a little bit easier to do so. And drop them down, big toes up, drop them down, big toes up, drop them down. Now let's switch. Big toes stay down, other toes up, get them all up, drop them down, all up, drop them down. Check in to see if you're tensioning throughout the rest of your body. Relax it out. And one more time, lift all the other toes up, get them way up, get them way up. Good work. Okay, and then from here, if you need to go a little bit farther, I have a series of things where you're on your knees. Let's just do one of these. I'll turn to the side so you can kind of see, but you want to make sure that you're curling your toes underneath. So we're like this. You can place the weight of your body onto your heels, or if it's too tense, then you can kind of stay up a little bit taller, right? You feel that?
Good.
You feel that? Yeah. So Jesse kind of has that back view, which is really, really good. Now, at the front, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to sit back. We're opening up the quads a little bit, and then we're going to come up. So this is also a really good way to kind of teach hip hinging.
Yeah.
Right? So just like so. And then I also want to make sure that you're not opening up your heels. You want to make sure that you're over that big toe. So bring those heels in towards each other, and let's actually practice in and out. I call this windshield wiper. Okay, so the windshield wiper, you can do that without putting weight onto your heels, or you can do that by putting weight onto your heels, and this is even more challenging. Yeah, so really drive those heels in and out. Very good. Good. All right, now let's relax that and let's sit on to the top part of the foot. So go ahead and relax that foot. Again, this is another one where people open up those heels. You want to keep those heels right underneath your sit bones, okay? And you might have to take your hands and push those in. Another thing I like to do here for some myofascial release is take the ridge of your thumb and place it onto the Achilles, and I kind of just massage this out. Give yourself a nice little massage, give yourself a nice little rub down. Okay, chest up, shoulders back. Very good. Okay, now here's one thing I want to also take it to another level. So let's get those toes back underneath themselves, and I want you to shift your hips back with your upper body forward. Looks like this.
Body.
Right back down. Yep. So head back down. Yep. And you do the modified. That's perfectly fine. Modification is here. Hands on the ground. Back down. Hands down. Sit back. There you go. Good. So do that. Yep. And stand it up. Shake out those legs. Perfect. Okay. So that's a really good foundation, since we're talking about foundation training, but it's a really good foundation because our feet are very important. If you don't get that movement throughout the toes and throughout the feet, and it's really hard to understand how to base yourself when it comes to bigger